Lions lost, so there's your recap for the week. um, yeah, it's
If
so far
anybody's
it's just
watched the Lions in the past 10 years, the game went exactly how almost all of those games went. There you go.
you and I were watching that game going into halftime, and they're like, they've got a little bit of a lead. I think they had a 10-point lead going into halftime, and
They kicked
and
the
Ben
field
and I,
goal.
we looked at each other and said, they're not going to win this game. They're
No,
not going.
no.
It wouldn't be
I was like,
Lions like to win this game.
I just was like, I've seen this game before. I'm not,
There's a
until,
script that they have to follow. So
yes, yep. Get the hopes up, draw you back in, and we both were not really drawn back in. We were both like, all right, well,
secondary was abysmal, and hence that led to Aubrey Pleasant. We can call it being a scapegoat, but truth of the matter is the defensive backs were the weak sauce on that defense. We were getting some pressure. Aiden Hutchinson continually gets pushed. Aleem McNeil's been good in the middle. Obviously Charles Harris is out, and really, for the most part, our original starters have been playing defensive back other than Tracy Walker.
mhm,
Akuda and Warrior. Mike Hughes was there until a week or two ago.
mhm.
And then we still had, and then obviously I think Melifonwu is hurt. Chase Lucas is hurt. Deshaun
Sean,
Elliott just got hurt. So, but I don't think that's the only issue in the secondary. The secondary has bigger issues, and you know, I think that's why we saw him
I
go.
think it's just kind of one of those things where, like, I mean, Dan Campbell even said it. It's a performance-based league, right? If your position group doesn't perform, he's got to make a move, right? And it's obvious the Lions are kind of looking ahead in general, probably from a GM on down. I mean, with the HOCK trade today, um, it's pretty obvious they're kind of trying to be a little more forward thinking here, and the defense in general has been bad, right? I don't think it's probably not one of those times where you need to make wholesale changes, right? But they haven't controlled a football game with the defensive side of the ball at all this year, right? Even for like a slight bit, they haven't. Like I can't think of a single game, even the game they won was not controlled by the defense for the most part. Hutchinson had an incredible first half, and that kept the defense afloat, right? And that's all that happened, right? In that game they won. So it's just one of those things where you had to do something probably at this point. Um, and unless you're just going to make wholesale changes by firing Aaron Glenn or then his is the logical move. Pleasant's the logical move, and I don't think it necessarily means Aubrey Pleasant is a terrible coach. I've always liked Aubrey Pleasant as a coach. It just means, hey, it didn't work this time, and
Yeah.
it could be a player, it could be a personnel thing, right? It could be a um uh you know could be an Aaron Glenn thing, right? Something just isn't working there, and maybe the players just need a different voice too. I'm not saying they're the best out there, right? They're not the. I think that is a personnel problem for a lot of this, but at the same time, sometimes it's just like, hey, it's just time to move on, and we'll figure it out, next year. So it makes sense.
Well, they get the Packers next, and Christian Watson will now be out as if they already weren't shorted at
Mhm.
wide receiver because I think Randall Cobb is out. Christian Watson just had his second concussion this past week, so yeah, they're running on like Alan Lazard and Romeo Dubes and Fumes.
Yeah.
Um, they Aaron Jones gets yards for whatever reason they can't always cash in.
Yeah.
Even the touchdown vulture that was AJ Dillon last year is not getting the touchdowns. So it's interesting. It looks like Aaron Rodgers has, regressed. So the Packers aren't very good right now. I think they have the same record as the Bears. They're 3-5.
They are. Um, I don't know. It's not a very good football team, but the Lions are worse, and that's the problem. If this game, even if the Lions had won last week, I would probably feel better about it and go, okay, maybe we can get a little momentum here if they, start putting some things together. But again, it's just one of those things where the Lions are that much worse than everybody else, and against certain teams, it isn't as bad, right? Where it's like, man, like they're gonna lose by 7 or 10 points, right? But um, I can't sit here with any kind of confidence thinking that the Lions have much of a chance in this game. I'm not, I think they have a chance because I really do think they've been in most games, but
I want to give them those intangibles.
but again, I mean, the offensive performance, we didn't even talk about the offense. The offensive second half performance was horrendous too. I mean, they didn't score. I know they barely had the ball in the third quarter, and that's part of it, game flow and stuff like that. And they moved the ball a little bit, but it's like, guys, you have to make. My biggest problem is the adjustments that are made. You see other teams making some of these adjustments to counteract with the Lions, and they typically come out of the gates pretty well, right? They've got a great scripted first drive. Their first half in general is really good. They come out with some ferocity on defense sometimes. And then the other team makes an adjustment, and the Lions really struggle to either adjust back or make their own adjustments at halftime or after things go south. And I think that's coaching, right? And I'm not saying it's all Dan Campbell. I'm not saying it's all Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson or whatever, but the biggest coaching is in the game of football in general. It doesn't start until the end of the second quarter on, right? The whole first 25 minutes of the game, right, is just feeling each other out and trying to figure out what adjustments need to be made. From there, who can make the adjustments fast enough and who can make the right adjustments and who can anticipate the other team's adjustments and adjust to even those, right? That's where it gets even better. And that's the biggest flaw in this Lions coaching staff right now. It's frustrating. Because Hard Knocks made me drink the Kool-Aid, darn it.
Yeah. All right.
I'd be interested to see the point total for Lions second halves. I know they scored a bunch against the Eagles, because they came back in that game. And I know there's probably one other game where they fought like crazy. I mean, the Seahawks game, but that game was just on drugs. But I would be interested to see how the offense has fared in the second halves of most games, because I don't think it's going to be that pretty.
So I'm looking at some of the trade grades and stuff like that, but I wanted your thoughts on who won each one of these bigger trades prior to the trade deadline today at 4 p.m. So let's start off with, I think, the biggest one. That was probably Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, Panthers to the 49ers. Who do you think wins that trade? It was the 49ers getting Christian McCaffrey for a second round, a third round, a fourth round, and next year's fifth round.
I think in the end, just because of the 49ers roster makeup and injury issues with McCaffrey injury issues in the past, and just like how he fits on that team, although he had the trifecta last week, throw, catch, and run a touchdown, which he can have these crazy games where he can do stuff like that. But I think in the end, I do really think the Panthers are going to win this trade. It's just so much draft capital, and I think the 49ers are. I just don't see where it fits, right? I mean, they've already had good backs on that team, right? And I'm not saying like he's not better than all of them, because healthy, fully operational Christian McCaffrey is a top 5 back in the NFL, right? But I just don't know how he fully fits with what they want to do. Maybe they're going to change some things for him, and they obviously did a little bit last week anyway. But you already have the Swiss Army knife guys like Debo on that team, and how many of those guys can you really have is my question. So,
and the 49ers have proved, just like the Lions have, that with their offensive line,
doesn't matter
Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell and Tyrion Davis Price can all run that football.
It doesn't matter who's back there. They're an NFL running back. They can be fine behind that offensive line. Now, the thought process might be, look, if Christian McCaffrey's back there, though, see what we'll do, right? And I get it. Yeah. I do get it. And he's fully healthy and ready to go. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, for sure. But I don't know. I think that's a lot to give up. And they've pretty much mortgaged their future onto that. And if Trey Lance doesn't work out, look out for that team.
Yeah. I'm going to give the slight edge to the 49ers, but that's just because I don't see the Panthers' second, third, and fourth, next year's fifth round picks adding up to what Christian McCaffrey is capable of.
Sure.
So that's assuming that he also stays healthy as long as he's with the 49ers.
Right. And
It's a
the
big
injury
assumption.
thing, the injury things is like completely like what if. I get it. But
Yeah,
at this point he hasn't really had a fully healthy season in a long time. So
I agree. Let's go with Roquan Smith here next to the Ravens. So the Ravens get Roquan Smith for AJ Klein, second and a fifth round pick.
the Ravens win this, in my opinion. I think it's kind of a steal.
So you think Roquan Smith is a huge difference maker like that?
I do. I think there were just because of they were struggling on defense. The linebacker level has been a struggle this year for them, and I think Roquan Smith kind of shores that up. And I think he's worth more than what they gave up for sure.
So I'm not as big on Roquan Smith. I know he's kind of a household name at linebacker, but I think with getting a second and a fifth, and I think essentially I think you look at mixing it with the Chase Claypool trade. Well, we're not going to do that right now. I just think AJ Klein is like a guy that still is going to start for the Bears.
Here.
He's not going to be Roquan Smith quite, but I think he can be like. I always think AJ Klein's like Alex Anzalone. Like he's going to get in there, he's going to bust his tail, and
Yeah,
he's
he's
going
gonna
to
work hard.
yeah. I know, but I think just I like a second round pick, and it seems like that's all the Bears want these days. I don't think the Bears had a first round pick in a while, since at least Khalil Mack was there. So,
You talk about the Claypool trade though.
yeah, right. I don't know. I want to give the slight edge, I think, to the Bears on this one, but I think the Bears fans are going to miss Roquan Smith. He's just kind of always been that mainstay guy in the defense, but I don't think they wanted to pay Roquan Smith.
No, they definitely did not. So that's the other thing. I mean, we can talk about the money considerations, which I'm sure we'll talk about with the Hockenson trade, but they weren't going to pay him what he maybe deserves or what he at least wants, right? And that's why you dump him, right? And you get what you can for him. So I get it. But I think he is a good linebacker, and I think more than anything, the reason I'm thinking that the Ravens are going to end up winning this trade is because I think he's going to really help them this year. So I think you're going to see immediate benefits of him being on that team.
Bradley Chubb. The Dolphins get Bradley Chubb and a 2025, so 2 years, fifth round pick. So the Broncos get Chase Edmonds and this year's first round pick from the 49ers, and then a fourth round pick next year. I'm going to say the Broncos win this trade.
Yeah, the Broncos win this one. I like Bradley Chubb. I do think he's a good player. But I mean, I think that's
a first round pick is
him.
huge.
A first round pick, that's overvaluing him, I think. Yeah, a first round pick. Anytime it's a first round pick, to me, it's got to be like a huge difference maker. And he might be, especially for a team that could use a guy at his position, right? But and is struggling on defense.
Yeah, they haven't really had an edge rusher since like Cameron Wake.
Yeah, they've got no pressure. I mean, the Lions were dicing him up. And really, Jared Goff didn't even have any pressure last week. It was just, he made some bad throws.
He got sacked one time by Zach Sealer. So that's like interior. So
yeah. So I think he will help them, certainly. And that was a move that I think it was just a move. You see it's a move to correct a problem that they have right now, right? But long term, first round pick, man. I mean, that is a valuable thing getting rid of. So
yeah. TJ Hockenson now. The Vikings get Hockenson. This year's fourth, and next year's conditional fourth. The Lions will get a second round pick this year and next year's third round pick.
I understand the pick or the draft,
I think it's a draw. I literally think it's a draw.
I do think it's a draw because Hockenson is not that good. I'm just gonna say it. He's a below average, if not just outright bad blocker most of the time. He is a slightly above average flex tight end as a receiver.
He's a bad route runner.
He's not a good route runner. He'd be a really good number two for a team with a really good tight end, right? He's a number one tight end in a lot of teams, though, for sure. But his strengths aren't what the Lions want out of that position either. They want that guy to be able to be an inline blocker and also be able to run routes. And he just isn't that guy. He's never proven to be that guy, right? Even if he thinks he's that guy, he's not that guy. I mean, Hockenson thinks he's like George Kittle, but he's not George Kittle at all, right? And that's kind of the guy that the Lions want. Um, he, so I get
Wanted
it.
16 million. He also wanted $16 million.
And he's going to want way too much money. The Lions were never going to pay that. So it's like, all right, we do need to get rid of this guy, especially now that the season's over for the
So
most
it's better
part.
to get something than nothing at all. Like the best to get at that point is a comp pick.
Correct. So I get it from all those standpoints. The frustrating thing for me is that you traded him in the division. I hate in division trades. At all times, I hate in division trades. And then, yeah, you struggle with it because the value isn't great, and you sit there and you go, man, like that really sucks because we wasted the number 9 overall pick on this guy, and he turned out to be, at times a tough matchup for teams at most, right? That's the worst he ever, the toughest he ever got, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get the fans' frustration, and he had become like a household name to an extent. He's been on the team for a while. I think he's liked from a fan base standpoint, but they got to realize he's not that good.
Brock Wright's done just fine, even in his absence.
Exactly. Brock Wright's been good. I'll take Brock Wright right now. Brock Wright is already a much better blocker than TJ Hockenson. So, I'll go with a push. I maybe even lean slightly. Yeah, it's no more than a push. I could lean Vikings because I just hate in division trades, and you're going to see the benefits of it right away. But I mean, now the Lions are building draft capital, and then we're going to see if the Lions parlay this into packaging that 3rd round pick or something into something to get somebody else, right? Then maybe that changes. But right now, it's a push at best.
All right, Calvin Ridley. Jaguars get Calvin Ridley from the Falcons, and the Falcons will get a 5th round pick that's conditional and a 2nd round pick next year that's conditional. So they're all conditional, but it's based on if and when he comes back. So
right. This one's weird because I do like Calvin Ridley a lot, but it's like, what's he been doing? Has he just been fan dueling, or has he just been, what's he been doing? So,
I'm going to say Falcons slightly.
Yeah, I'm going to go Falcons because of the 2nd round. I think if it was like a 3rd, then I might lean the other way because I do like him. But again, I just don't. I think there's too many things up in the air, and Jacksonville just stinks. So I'm not putting anything. I feel like it's just not. He's gonna be with Jacksonville. He's gonna be like an 850 receiving yard guy with 6 or 7 touchdowns at best. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Trevor Lawrence isn't really taking that step yet to show that
right.
It's going to be much.
And maybe a guy like Ridley will help him, but he's not like he's not a number 1 crazy. You have to account for this guy in every play receiver. He's a solid number 2 or 3. So
the busy Chicago Bears also got Chase Claypool from the Steelers, and the Steelers get a 2nd round pick for it. I'm taking the Steelers.
And this is the worst trade of the day, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Chase Claypool stinks, guys. He's not very good, and he's a cancer. Okay. For a
many ask, is this the Ravens 2nd round or the Bears 2nd? It doesn't matter. It's a 2nd round pick for Chase Claypool.
2nd round pick that you had. It is your pick now.
Claypool was like a 4th round, maybe.
He was
that I would give the most.
Right. I wouldn't even want him. The Steelers clearly don't want him anymore, right? And it's not because he has some talent, right? He's shown some flashes of some crazy games, right? But I don't want that guy on my team. I mean,
Can he be the difference maker for the Bears? They've been looking for that wide receiver opposite Darnell Mooney for a while here, and
no, he fits the mold for a big target and everything, but no.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. I'm going to say Robert Quinn here next. Eagles get Robert Quinn from the Bears. And the Bears get a 4th round pick this year for him. I'm going to say I think that's borderline draw for me just because Robert Quinn's 32 years old. He's also on an expiring contract, and who knows how much he's going to be asking for. I don't think either are like super great, but Robert Quinn's going to make a difference for the Eagles, but the fact that he's old and probably still going to demand money that the Bears aren't interested in paying and a rebuild, I think that works well for the Bears.
Yeah, I think it works well. They got draft capital. Not a great pick, but a fourth-round pick. You can get value there. Robert Quinn still has some good football left in him, but it was pretty obvious it wasn't going to be with the Bears probably after this season anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles could use some help because, they've got old guys up. I mean, Brandon Graham's been the guy up there up front on the edge there for a long time, but he's getting older too. So now you get more guys up there. The Eagles are trying to make a push this year. I mean, this is a good football team this year, and they feel like they can make a run. So I think it benefits both sides. And like I said, yeah, you're dumping a contract or a guy that you're never going to resign anyway if you're the Bears. And it sucks because he's been kind of a mainstay there for a little bit, and is a good player still. But it is a rebuild. So
I'm going to try to get two more in here, and then I've got to go take care of a baby. I'm going to go Kadarius Toney next. Chiefs get Kadarius Toney. Giants will get a third-round compensatory pick and a sixth-round pick this year.
I'm going to go push.
I think that's a very close to push. If I gave an edge to any team, it's probably the Chiefs.
Yep.
But I don't know what Kadarius Toney's going to be either with the Chiefs. It's just
right. I think if you're the Chiefs, it just bolsters an already pretty talented receiver room and he adds a lot of speed, and I think he can certainly help that team. And really, more than anything, if somebody goes down, you suddenly aren't kind of grasping for somebody who's not that good, right?
Right.
But I don't know what he's going to bring. He's been unhealthy for a lot of it. So, but
watch him miraculously get healthy.
Well,
just like that.
Catching passes from Patrick Mahomes will do that to you.
Just energizes you. Yeah,
exactly.
Nyheim Hines, last trade before the deadline, went to the Bills, and the Bills give the Colts Zach Moss and a conditional fifth-round pick this year. I think I want to. God, that's borderline push too, but I think Zach Moss is actually not that bad.
And
I think Nyheim Hines is kind of a jack of all trades. So return, he's explosive.
He's
obviously
fast.
Zach Moss doesn't have the speed that Hines does.
No, Zach Moss doesn't really fit what the Bills want to do on offense. But it was very clear that the Bills wanted to add at running back. I mean, they were in the Christian McCaffrey sweepstakes, but I think. And maybe this is just because he's not Christian McCaffrey, but if you're a Bills fan, you're kind of like, oh, that's
Walmart Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, we got just that fast guy that's not nearly as good. So I'm leaning sort of a push, kind of wait and see. But if anything, I'll lean Colts there just because I think Zach Moss is a pretty good NFL back, and they get a pick out of it. And if you're the Bills, I don't know what more Nyheim Hines brings for your team. You know what I mean? Did he really vastly improve the Bills' backfield? I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll just go off, and he might in that offense. But
the only other trade that I think is more lopsided than we talked about Claypool is the Robbie Anderson trade. The Cardinals get Robbie Anderson and then give the Panthers a sixth and a seventh round, sixth next year, a seventh round the year after that. So 2 years away. But getting any picks for Robbie Anderson at this point is a miracle. And you just swipe two. And I know they're late, but anything.
Doesn't
really,
matter.
Especially after his
Anderson providing zero value to them, obviously. So he just wanted out. I mean, and that's part of it, but I don't know. He had one good season, right?
Yeah.
It was with Cam Newton, I think.
Yeah, and then even with the Jets, I think he had a couple good games, but it wasn't like a season put together.
Yeah, I don't know what. I think he thinks more of himself than what he is. So,
and then obviously Chase Edmonds is being replaced with Jeff Wilson for a fifth-round pick. And then other ones I saw, James Robinson, obviously, to the Jets for a conditional sixth-round pick this year.
Yep.
Deion Jones.
And that's a good trade for the Jets, in my opinion, because I like James Robinson, and obviously with Breece Hall going down, that kind of they need,
especially because they're also having a surprisingly decent year.
Correct. And you can't put it all on Zach Wilson. We saw what happens.
That's correct. Deion Jones went to the Browns with a seventh-round pick next year, and the Falcons get a sixth-round pick next year. So, I mean, To me, that's a Browns win in that one. But
by far. I mean, Deion
yeah,
Jones, I know he's a little bit older, but he is still very good.
he's a good linebacker, and it's a next year's 1 round difference in picks.
Right.
It's crazy. So William Jackson III went to the Steelers with a 2025 conditional 7th round pick for a 2025 conditional 6th round pick to the Commanders.
Okay.
Yikes. These are interesting. They're really digging deep on these now.
Yep.
And then Jonathan Hankins to the Cowboys from the
Yep.
Raiders. Jacob Martin to the Broncos from the Jets. Rashad Fenton to the Falcons from the Chiefs. Dean Marlowe, former Lion, to the back to the Bills from the Falcons. So he's in his second stint now with the Bills, which is the team he was with before the Lions. So yeah, it was a very active trade deadline period here, and it was fun. I don't know, I enjoyed it.
I enjoy when there's more action. The
Yes.
NFL trade deadline is the lamest of all the deadlines for sure, typically.
Yeah.
So
Baseball's the best one actually. So
yeah, by far it's always the most active, but
But yeah,
different.
so we'll do the 2007 MLB draft next week, and then recap Lions, Packers, Michigan, Rutgers, and we'll get back with you. All right, we'll see, man.